Hello, everybody. This is Josh Price, and you are listening to the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Each episode, my dad will be talking NBA basketball, sharing some coaching and instruction, and of course, talking about his faith. Without further delay, here's my dad, Mark Price.
All right, welcome back to episode 58 of the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Coming off a long holiday weekend for most people. Mark, how you doing?
Doing great, Aaron. How are you? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
We did. You got a Christmas tree behind you. People can't see it because it's a podcast, but it looks like decoration is happening at the Price house.
Lights right now. I don't have bulbs on it yet, but we're getting there.
So do you go full Griswold or is it just subtle?
I'm not full Griswold because I don't, put stuff on the top of my roof line, but all the bushes underneath.
Yeah.
Cover pretty good. So
yeah, you keep it ground level.
Yeah. Stay away from ladders and high places.
That's a very good idea. All right, let's talk Cavs. They're currently 9-8. Big win last night versus the Raptors. They had lost 2 in a row, so got a big win. Get that losing streak over with as quick as possible. We're going to talk about in-season tournament today. They're 2-1 in the in-season tournament standings, and big game coming up in Atlanta, right there in your town. They got to win that one from what I understand. They got to get some help, and they also have to score a bunch of points, as best I understand it, to have a chance to be in the tournament. Currently, they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, like you said, every time we've talked about this, everybody's still kind of trying to figure it out. But you even see stuff on Twitter, things like that, where players are getting mad at other players because they're dribbling out the clock and they're saying, no, we need all the points we can get. It's really, I think in some ways, been a little confusing even to the players on the court. The whole idea of we're up 20 points, so you should just run the clock out. And you got guys saying, no, we need more points, jack it up,
Yeah.
Things like interesting concept. I think probably, I don't know this for sure, but I think the players are probably glad when the tournament thing gets over with and they can focus on what the real goal is. And that's trying to make the playoffs and get to the real tournament at the end of the season. But it's definitely been interesting. The courts, the colors of the courts, things like that. It's been a little crazy, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what the response is overall from people. I'm not sure they're getting the buy-in that they were looking for, and people from Barkley to other people have their opinions on how much they make if they win versus getting a trophy. I think we've talked about it at one point. I think the best quote I've seen, I think it was Halliburton from Indiana. He says, if you really want to get the players engaged in the in-season tournament, there needs to be something real at the end of it. And you say, well, 500,000 is real, but to guys making 20 million, that's not. But, something real to this point of, okay, you qualify for the playoffs at the end of the year. Now there's something real at the end of that in-season tournament that I think guys could latch on to. But it'll be interesting to see if they continue it or what changes they make to it next year and kind of see how, by the time it ends up this year, kind of what the thoughts are with it.
I'd almost rather see him plug the Elon ending or what's it called? The Elam ending. You know what I'm talking about? They use it in a couple of the other tournaments where you go into the fourth quarter. I think they might use it in the All-Star game where there's a differential and anyway, if you want to bring excitement to the game, I just think there's other ways to do it. And that's one of them. That brings a ton of excitement to the end of a game because now it matters. And I do believe they may try that or use that in the All-Star game, if I remember right. But yeah, still very confusing, but the Cavs are still in it. They're not out of it yet, whatever that means. Now, I think if they are out of it, then I assume they get like a week off while this tournament runs in Vegas with all the teams that did make it. Very weird. Just a very strange concept.
Yeah. More time off for the players, right?
Right, exactly. You're like, hey, man, where was that in my day?
Guys are going to come back out of shape and everything else. So anyway,
that's right.
The kind of the fallout from all of this and how it plays out moving forward.
One of the things that we talked about over the summer was not a lot of content. So we did our best over the summer to provide podcasts and talk about a lot of things, but boy, the NBA is providing content now. Let's start with your former teammate. I'm going to play a quick clip and then we'll come back and talk about it.
This building, you can't hear anything because it's like a club. It's like a South Beach club out there. What are we doing? I'm being dead serious. Like, I couldn't hear anything out there. It's just the whole game. It's just this thumping techno club music. Can we just have a basketball game anymore?
So your former teammate, Steve Kerr, had some feelings about a game that they played. I don't remember the arena. I should probably know this. I believe it was Phoenix.
Well, you're right. I think it was playing the Suns, yes.
But this is true for every arena. And he's not happy about, he called it techno music. And I assume it was playing during the game, which I don't know if that you might know, there used to be a rule where if they couldn't play it during the game, it was just during timeouts.
Yeah, there used to be a rule. I think music had to stop playing at a certain point once the game got started, but that seems to be thrown out the window now. And, you'll hear this bang banging stuff or whatever as guys are dribbling the ball up the court, things like that. And I think Steve's point was more than anything. I mean, as a coach, you're trying to yell or trying to give out instructions. I mean, no one can hear you.
Yeah.
It's so loud out there. And we just play basketball. I think old school guys and basketball purists have been saying that for years that, you hear the phrase, hey, went to a basketball game and a concert broke out, kind of, can we just go to kind of the Boston Celtic days where they just play the organ on the introductions and basketball and nothing else.
Yeah.
Both on that. So, I mean, it's definitely the entertainment, whatever they're charging for ticket prices or things like that feel the need to, hey, entertain 24/7 now. But I think, that should be looked at as well. It'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of reaction from the league or any changes made moving forward on, what's a middle ground with all this. I think we understand we live in a different era now and the pension span is not what it used to be.
Right. For sure.
Sure. That's fact. And so you do have to keep people entertained to a certain extent, but during timeouts and things like that, you understand it. But when the game's going on, you should be focusing on the game, allowing the players out there to play to their potential and be able to focus.
I agree with you. And I think I go back to the Richfield Coliseum days where they'd play like the same 5 songs. It was like Gary Glitter. That was an old school drop name, but Gary Glitter, I think they'd play whatever that was. They had like the same 5 songs they'd play at Richfield Coliseum in between timeouts. And they had the animation with the clapping hands on the big Jumbotron up above. And that's when tickets were, pretty reasonable. And I think that, yes, there has been a raise in ticket prices because the players make more. I get that. But one of the things that I get when I go to a game, personally, just as a fan, is I see there's a new group coming out between every timeout. There's promotions. There's massive arenas. There's all this stuff. And I know it's all for entertainment, but I have to think that everybody's getting paid something. All these dance team and street team and whatever other team that they bring out. I would just want to watch a good quality game. You know what I mean? And I think that's most people. Maybe I'm just old and maybe some people go to the game for all that entertainment, but I agreed with Steve. I don't need all that. I just put a good product on the floor, play hard, let's get a good game. And you see that in college. Look at college. It's very successful because it's just a game. I don't know.
I agree with you. I think, that's a debate that everybody could have. What's the answer? What's the middle ground? And I mean, during timeouts and halftime, go for it, man.
Sure. Right.
Once the players hit the floor and you're out there playing, you're competing, you're trying to win games, let them focus on what they got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that's Steve Kerr. Next up was Greg Popovich. So Greg Popovich, who's always good for a soundbite, especially during a coach interview. Kawhi Leonard shooting free throws, crowds booing. Coach Pop, I'll play the clip here.
Excuse me for a second. Can we stop all the booing and let these guys play? It's got no class. It's not who we are. Knock off the booing.
So Coach Pop comes out and goes to the in-arena microphone and announces that they should stop booing. Have you ever in your life seen anything like it?
I have seen that. I think I've seen it on the college level a few times when it's been, whether it be the student body or throwing things, or a coach will come to the microphone and kind of make an announcement. Hey guys, that's not who we are. That kind of talk. I haven't seen it at the pro level too much, and I haven't seen the clip, but I'm glad you played it. But, Pop's always the contrarian, obviously Kawhi Leonard played for San Antonio, and I'm sure Pop has a relationship with them, and was basically, hey, this guy helped us win, while he was here. Let's treat him with respect. I think that was probably the mindset. And I think that could be used all over, I think the level, and that's maybe a topic for another day, the level of vitriol now coming from fans has gone to another level. And so, let's dial it back a little bit, show these guys a little bit of respect. Yeah, boo, whatever, it's a bad call, blah, 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 but cheer for your team. I think that let's cheer for your team. We don't have to be nasty to the other team.
And I saw a clip just before we jumped on where they asked him in the post game why he did it. And he said, you don't poke the bear. In classic Popovich fashion, that's all he said. And he said, that's all I'm going to say is you don't poke the bear in sports. And I think so, knowing that now, I think what he was saying is, hey, don't get this guy going. Like, he doesn't need any extra motivation to come out and beat us. We're trying to win a game. And so in that aspect, I think I understand it, but I don't think we want to set a precedent where coaches start going to the, like, to your point, Coach K did that. I've heard Coach K say that once, about player or, the crazies at Duke about, something that was going on during a game. He did grab a mic, I think, once and do that. It was just very interesting. Cranky Coach week, I think, was last week. There was a lot of coaches airing their grievances, and it's not even Festivus yet.
Even going to that, I think fans, like, going back to ticket prices, right? And someone's paying $50, $60, $100 for a ticket. They kind of feel like they can say whatever they want, I guess, if they're going to pay that much money to go to a game. So yeah, that's another one that's can be debated back and forth, what should be allowed, what shouldn't be allowed. But yeah, Cranky Coach week, that was a good.
They were airing their grievances. So as a player, in both of those circumstances, music playing, were you so focused during the game that did you hear the music even? Did you sense those things when you were playing? Or were you so focused on what you're doing on the court that you just kind of clear the mechanism and you don't hear it?
Yeah, I think most guys block most stuff out. I think we never had it while we were playing. Yeah. So I could speak to that. But the only time I really heard the music was in warm-ups. I kind of would get the juices flowing a little bit when you board, and you can kind of groove into the music a little bit while you're trying to get loose for the game. That's about the only time I really listened to the music or anything like that was playing. If it was something that I liked. You never know.
That's right. You never know. Moving up to the next thing is Chris Paul, and this is going to take us into our faith segment, but let's start with this. Chris Paul and one of the NBA officials, Scott Foster, apparently have a very bad relationship. And there's a lot of history out here. People can go YouTube it, Google it. You'll find stuff. And a lot of us don't know what that history is, but there is a history there. And last week, during a game, Scott Foster teed up Chris Paul once. They got into it, obviously, after that. He teed him up again. And then, obviously threw him out of the game. And then Steve Kerr actually got the technical too. So there were 3 technicals in about a 5-minute window between the 3 of them. And so I wanted to ask you, because, about a player and an official relationship, did you have those? Were there guys you knew I can probably get away with this? I mean, there's a lot of questions I have for you there when it comes to players and officials.
Well, I think the era that I played in, it seemed like there was a relationship, more of a relationship between the players and the officials. I mean, there were guys, when I came in the league that were reffing 10 years before I got there to all the way through my career. I mean, I think of one guy, I have one great story, my rookie year. And I don't know if you remember a guy named Jess Kersey.
Absolutely.
Was one of the top officials for years and years, redheaded, kind of fiery guy, character, funny character guy. I remember playing, I got in the game. I was a backup point guard when I first got to Cleveland, and I was out on the floor. Jess was calling the game, and I guess I maybe question a call of his or whatever. And, Cleveland was back, we were trying to start something there. Right.
Yeah.
And remember timeouts called. We go to the huddle. We're sitting in the huddle, and all of a sudden, Jess Kersey breaks into our huddle and just starts cursing me out. Like, no one's going to talk to me, especially a rookie and especially in Cleveland. But you guys haven't earned the right to like question me or whatever. I mean, and it was kind of took me aback. And then, fast forward about 5 or 6 years, I had that run where I was going after the all-time free throws made in a row thing. And it was just by the end, it was up to, I think it was 78 I was trying to get to or something like that. And it was just, there was a stretch there toward the end, when I got to about 66, then I was only getting like 2 or 3 free throws a game. So it was just like, and the media stuff starts picking up, and I just was getting tired of the question, to deal with it. So I think I was about 6 or 7 away, and we're playing in Charlotte, and Jess Kersey is one of the officials. And I remember this is a real legit conversation. I walked up to Jess before the game in warm-ups, and I said, "Hey, Jess, I need your help, man." And I said, this free throw record thing is just hanging over my head. And I said, I need you to get me to the line 8 times tonight. One way or the other, this thing's done.
Yeah.
And he just basically kind of said, I hear you. And I got 8 free throws, and I, ended up missing the last one or whatever to not get it. But I remember looking over at Jess, and he kind of winked at me. But that was a little bit of how that when I talk about having a relationship with the referees and the players back in those days, you could talk to guys, hey, Jess or whatever official, hey, look, this guy's grabbing me every time I come off the screen. Can you take a look at it? We were able to have those kind of conversations, and they might say, or something, say, man, he hit me on the wrist, and he might say, well, I didn't see it that way. Or they might even say, you know what, I missed that call. I'll be better next time. You just have those kind of relationships. And it seems today anyway, it seems to be a little bit more of a combative relationship between the officials and the players. And I was, there was guys that you considered homers back in the day, guys that, or you got one of them on the road that was pretty fair on the road. You were, all right, we got a shot tonight. This guy's going to call us a good game. And you kind of knew and they knew you. Like they knew my game, they knew if they called the game, and you can say whether that's right or it's wrong, or they favored, but they understood what guys did and how they played, and they called the game accordingly, like that. So it was, I always had great banter with most of the officials. There was a few that you couldn't really talk to much. But most of them you could actually have a conversation with and like, hey, man, they're hammering me every time I come off this. You take a look at it, and, 9 times out of 10, they would, so it was I think a more, like I said, a relationship. It was part of this game. We're putting on this game together, right? We're trying to, the fans are here. We want to, we're a team, so to speak, in the NBA, we want to put a good product out on the floor, and, you got to have some give and take between the players and the officials. And we seem to lost that somewhere along the line. And they don't want to have a conversation with the players anymore. It's like if a player approaches them, it's almost like they're attacking them or something like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it just seems to be a little bit different that way as far as Chris Paul and in that situation. I think I saw a stat might have been last year in the playoffs or something, that it was astonishing that when Scott Foster called their games, Chris Paul was losing those games. He lost almost every one of them type of thing. And I think sometimes we can pick out stats that there's a lot more involved in that than just because there's 2 other referees, there's other teams involved. But so there's definitely something there. I don't know the history of it. Maybe a little bit more of maybe why it started. but it's not good look for the NBA for people to think that there's a ref that doesn't like a player and a player doesn't like a ref. Cause they're supposed to kind of be in tandem. Not that, you're going to get every call and, there's not going to be bad calls, but that in some sense we're working together for the betterment of the NBA. And that's just a bad look in my opinion.
And I don't know a lot of the history. I did see after he was tossed, they interviewed him and he mentioned something about his son. I don't know anything about it. So anything I said would be wrong probably, but he did mention that they've even had a meeting. I think his representative, Scott Foster's representative, he mentioned some other names. So they've even had a meeting about this. Like, I don't know what that beef is between those guys, but there's clearly something there. And if I'm in a game 7 and I'm the Warriors and Scott Foster's doing the game, I have to be concerned if I'm Steve Kerr, and I don't think the NBA would set that up that way, knowing this history that they have. But who knows? But to your point, there's history, and that just seemed weird to me. But I do think it's interesting that could possibly happen between officials. But I love the Jess Kersey story. It's fantastic. That being said, let's talk about our faith segment today, and that's your enemies. I just thought of that as I was looking at that situation. Sometimes we do get in these dust-ups with friends, colleagues, family. We just came off Thanksgiving. There might have been some political arguments around the Thanksgiving table that we got to clear up with family members. I don't know. We all have those things. Coworkers, we get into situations where enemies may be a strong word, but we do get into things where people we don't agree with. But I think we are called to pray for those people. And so I wanted to get your feedback on that in the faith segment today. When you do have enemies, that's just kind of a broad brush word, but when you have those you don't agree with, what are your thoughts about how we're called to pray for them?
Well, I think our greatest example is the example of our Lord, Jesus Christ, and the prayer that most everybody knows, the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I think in the natural state of, even as believers, I think in the flesh, in our natural flesh, it's like we want God to forgive us, but yet we want to hold on to things, other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
We're not just willing to freely give that forgiveness. And there's a great story in the scripture. I don't know exactly where it's located, but it's a story of a guy who forgives what was owed to him by 3 different guys, and 2 of them go out and whatever, but one of them doesn't forgive what's owed to him from somebody after he's been forgiven what Jesus forgave him. And so, I think that's the point made. I mean, we are to forgive. We're told to forgive. It's not an option, as a believer. You go forgive others as well. And that's the economy, of Christ. And it's not, okay, I'm going to forgive you, but now you lord it over, or don't forgive somebody else. And I think that's a real challenge for us, because we're finite. We're not infinite as he is. And so obviously it's easier for him in certain, we still have this fleshly sin nature that we struggle with and that we fight every day. And so it's harder for us to do that, to forgive somebody that's really hurt us in some way or another. And yet God commands us to do that. And I think we both know that when you hold a grudge against somebody, or it's not hurting that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's hurting us, because we're keeping that within us. You know what I'm saying? And I think so, when you finally let that go, I think that's when you feel the spirit and freedom, and man, a weight's been lifted. I don't have to, that's God's going to take care of that situation. All we got to do is let go of it and forgive.
And I think there's a quote that says something like, bitterness is drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I don't know whoever said that, but I think it's very true. And the other thing is that Bob Goff said that we should pray for difficult people because we're one of them. And that's a pretty simple but true quote. We forget that we're difficult people too. And somebody forgave us, to your point. Somebody's forgiven us. We need to turn around and do the same. It's not easy. It is not easy. But Scripture commands us to do it. Luke 6:28 says to pray for those who abuse you. That's tough. That's tough. And again, we're not, I don't know every situation of everybody that's listening, but we're called to do it. And it's tough. It's not easy sometimes.
Now that to be clear, that doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with them.
Right.
Anymore. You don't stay in an abusive relationship or whatever.
Right.
You can forgive and you can pray for them. That doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with them anymore. So many times in Scripture, you see the disciples as they go, they're sharing the gospel and they just run into people that are trying to kill them or whatever. And so at some point it talks about, they brushed the dust off their feet and they moved on to another city. Right. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay in a situation that's bad or whatever, but you can forgive and then move on. So I just want to be clear about that. You don't have forgiveness and praying for somebody doesn't mean you have to allow them to continue to do the same type of things.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. We're up against the shot clock, so I got to run through the Cavs week ahead. We got a big one this week against the Hawks. Are you going to go to the game?
Probably not.
Okay.
This weekend, the last weekend has been super, super busy. So I'm kind of just taking it easy this weekend and catch our breath and regroup. So, but it was awesome. It was so great having all four of my kids and their spouses and their fiancés and baby Lily, getting to spend time with her. It was awesome. It was a great week. And, it was a lot of work, of course, but prepare and cooking and all that fun stuff. But it's a lot of work, but, Laura did a great job hosting and, we loved having our family with us. We don't get to have everybody in one place that often anymore. So it was a big blessing for us. Hope yours is good as well.
It was amazing. It's always good to be around family, having everybody home. As you said, Cavs have Atlanta this week, as we have said. Again, that is a in-season tournament game. Then they have the Blazers and Pistons to kind of round it out. And then I think they may be, if they're out of that tournament, then they are off until December 11th. And so I assume that they're off, but they've got they're still dealing with some injuries. So gives guys a chance to maybe heal up. They're starting to come together. Let's get guys healthy if we're not going to be in the in-season tournament. And then let's really go after it here in, the second half of
I agree with you. I don't think it'd be the worst thing for them to not be in the tournament, get a week off, like you said, big story for the first, 20 something games of the season, here has been what lineup are we playing tonight? And
right.
So it sure would be nice to get rested, get healthy, and then come in December and start making that run.
And like you said, the in-season tournament distraction will be over with. Now let's focus on get back to the old days, like when we just played played the game as it should be. So Mark, thanks for joining us again this week for episode 58. It's always good to catch up and talk hoops. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about next week as well.
Look forward to it as always, Aaron. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Remember to subscribe, like, review, and share. I'm Josh Price, and we will talk to you again on the next episode.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between, and all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com.